My family had fallen on hard times, so Big Sister brought me to seek shelter at the Marquise of Jinbei's residence. She already had a betrothal arranged, yet she still developed feelings for the heir. In secret, she gave him a hairpin as a token of affection. When the madame traced the hairpin back to us, she mistakenly believed it belonged to me. In the end, I took Big Sister's place and married into the Marquis's household, becoming the heir's wife after the wedding. Wen Huaiqing felt nothing but resentment toward me. He blamed me for ruining his entire life. He blamed me for making him lose his true love forever. Every night, the moment our marital duties were over, he personally forced me to drink a bowl of contraceptive tonic. "If it weren't for you," he said, "I would have spent my life with Tanger. If I could do it all over again, I would only wish to correct this mistake." Then, one morning, I was reborn. I returned to the exact day the madam arrived with the hairpin in her hand. I looked at that hairpin, and the corners of my eyes curved into a faint smile. The hairpin in the madam's hand truly was beautiful. I wondered which shop it had come from. Was it expensive? The madam gently stroked the crabapple blossom pattern with her fingertip. Her gaze moved slowly between me and Big Sister before she finally tucked the hairpin back into her sleeve. "It was something I picked up," she said. "It must have been dropped by one of the maidservants." Then she asked a few more questions. "Are you two settling in well here? Is there anything you're lacking?" Big Sister hurriedly offered a few words of thanks, her tone noticeably softer than before. I told the madame there was nothing we needed. After that, she left. The moment the door closed, Big Sister collapsed into her chair. Cold sweat had soaked through the thin fabric across her back. I poured a cup of water and handed it to her. She took it, but her fingertips were still trembling. I asked softly, "About that hairpin. Which hairpin was it?" I remember Big Sister has a white jade hairpin carved with crabapple blossoms. "You must have seen it wrong." Big Sister lowered her head and drank the water. "I put my hairpin away long ago. It must have been my mistake." After saying that, she fell silent. I looked at her lowered lashes, and the events of my previous life suddenly rose before my eyes. On the day our father passed away, he placed our hands together and told us to seek refuge with our aunt. Our aunt had remarried years earlier, becoming the second wife in the Marquis of Jinbei's household. She had no children of her own, so she treated the heir as if he were her own flesh and blood. In my previous life, on the very first day we arrived at the Marquis's residence, Wen Huaiqing showed special care toward Big Sister. At the time, I only thought he was being considerate and polite. I never thought much of it. Only later did I learn that the two of them had secretly met in private more than once. But Big Sister already had a betrothal. The Cui family was one of the leading noble clans in the capital, and Cui Mian was young, exceptionally talented, and already held an important position in the court of judicial review. He was highly favored by the emperor. This marriage had been personally arranged by our father before his death. For Big Sister, it was the best possible match. I didn't understand why she still became entangled with Wen Huaiqing. That day had been the heir's birthday. Big Sister drank with him in his room, and in her tipsy state, she removed the hairpin from her hair and gave it to him as a token of affection. Wen Huaiqing accepted it. He was still gently stroking it, admiring it, when the madam happened to catch them the next morning. The madam brought that very hairpin to question us. Big Sister was the first to speak. She claimed it was mine. After the madam left, I wanted to chase after her and explain the truth, but Big Sister grabbed my sleeve. Then she dropped to her knees and begged me. She said that, as sisters, we had to rely on each other. Our fortunes were tied together, for better or worse. She admitted she knew it was wrong, But feelings were beyond her control, and the madame would never allow the heir to marry a girl who had already been promised to another family. Juan, she told me, just consider it as doing this for my sake. Even if you don't say anything, the heir would never agree anyway. After all, I'm the one in his heart. How could he possibly marry you? Yet, to my surprise, when the madam later took out the crab apple's hairpin to test Wen Huaiqing's feelings and said she wanted him to marry me, he actually agreed. On our wedding night, Wen Huaiqing lifted my red veil, glanced at me once, then turned his face away without another word. The red candles burned high, filling the room with a bright, festive glow. Yet he didn't even want to exchange a single polite sentence with me. He simply told me to rest early, stood up, and left for his study. I sat alone on the edge of the bed, still wearing my wedding gown, listening as his footsteps faded into the distance. Only later did I learn why he had agreed to marry me. Big Sister had personally told him that their relationship had been a mistake, and that it was still possible to turn back. She said that after she married, she only hoped the Marquis's household would treat me well and help me find a good match. But Wen Huaiqing, wanting to spite her, stubbornly insisted on marrying me instead. Seeing this, Big Sister could only say, "Since the heir has chosen to marry Juan, you must cherish and love her from now on." After the wedding, Wen Huaiqing treated me with icy indifference. During the day, he acted as if I didn't exist. If we happened to meet inside the residence, he never greeted me, never asked how I was, and looked at me as if I were nothing more than a blade of grass beneath the eaves. Too insignificant even for him to lift his eyes. Once, I tried to strike up a conversation. I asked whether his duties had been busy that day. I asked what he would like for dinner. He either ignored me entirely or replied coldly that I needn't trouble myself. At night, he never once stepped into my courtyard. He would invite a few friends over, drink until he was drunk, and remain in his study until dawn. Later, the madam grew worried and ordered that on the 1st and 15th of each month, he had to spend the night in my room. When Wen Huaiqing heard this, he merely gave me an indifferent glance. On the night of the 1st, he entered my courtyard with an expressionless face. The moment the door closed, he was decisive and efficient, showing not the slightest trace of tenderness. The instant our marital duties were over, he threw on his robe and stood up without looking back. Soon after, a bowl of pitch-black medicine was brought before me. He handed it to me himself and watched me drink it down to the last drop. There was not a trace of warmth in his eyes. "If it weren't for you," he said, "I would have spent my life with Tanger. If I could do it all over again, I would only wish to correct this mistake." Lately, quite a few rumors had begun spreading through the residence. Some said both sisters were trying to climb high. Others claimed it was only me. Still others pointed at Big Sister. The gossip grew uglier the more it spread. When Big Sister heard it, her face turned deathly pale. She looked as if her soul had left her body. I gently advised her, "Why don't we move out?" She suddenly lifted her head, panic filling her eyes, and grabbed my hand tightly. "Juan, the two of us have nowhere else to go. How could we possibly survive on our own outside?" I looked at her and sighed softly in my heart. Big Sister had always been like a climbing vine, sentimental, timid, and frail. She couldn't leave the safety and protection of these four walls. In my previous life, even after she married Cui Mian and he cherished her in every possible way, the deep-rooted insecurity in her bones never lessened. Whenever she attended a banquet, she would shrink into a corner, too afraid to mingle. If someone else initiated a conversation, she would only lower her head, answer briefly, and hurry away. Fortunately, Cui Mian treated her exceptionally well, so well, in fact, that everyone in the capital said Lord Kui had brought home a delicate porcelain statue and raised it in his palms, protecting it with reverence and care. Now, the mere mention of moving out made her feel as if the sky were collapsing. If these rumors reached Cui Mian's ears, I said softly, that would truly be troublesome. Her lashes trembled. Besides, I continued, the estate father left us is more than enough for us to live comfortably. That was true. Although father had passed away early, he had arranged everything properly. Land, shops, gold, and silver. Nothing was lacking. It was more than enough for the two of us to live peacefully in the capital without depending on anyone. Big sister remained silent for a long time before she finally said quietly, I'll think about it. I didn't press her further. The capital saw a great deal of rain. That day, I stood under the covered walkway again, watching the rain fall. A voice suddenly sounded behind me. I heard the two of you plan to move out. My back stiffened. It was Wen Huiqing. Ever since my rebirth, I had been avoiding him. I never expected to run into him here. I turned around. Wen Huiqing was strikingly handsome. There was no need to deny that. In my previous life, countless young ladies in the capital had had their hearts shattered when they learned he had married an orphan girl. But what use was mere handsomeness? I took a few steps back and greeted him properly. Here, the two of us are unmarried girls after all. Staying in the Marquis' residence for too long may damage your reputation. Besides, Big Sister already has a betrothal. Moving out would be best for everyone. He looked down at the top of my head for a long moment, then let out a cold laugh. A betrothal? Cui Mian is gentle and courteous, but he treats everyone the same way. If Big Sister marries into that family, will it truly be a good match? I lowered my eyes and didn't answer. Whether it would be a good match or not, I didn't know for certain, but in my previous life, I had personally witnessed how Cui Mian treated Big Sister after a banquet. When he helped her into the carriage, one hand lightly supported her waist, while the other shielded the carriage roof, afraid she might bump her head. The way he looked at her had been gentle enough to melt snow. If you're asking me, I said, I don't think it would be good for Big Sister to break her engagement with the Quiffy family and then marry into the Marquis's household. Even if you wish to marry her, you should wait for Big Sister to end the engagement herself before coming to propose. Not like in my previous life. Back then, after Big Sister had already married, he simply followed the Madame's arrangements. Casually married me, and then spent the rest of his life resenting me. The rain continued to fall. Wen Huiqing looked at me as if waiting for an answer. I raised my head and said calmly, Hair, Big Sister's marriage is hers to decide. I'm only her younger sister. It isn't my place to make decisions for her. His eyes darkened. I offered another respectful greeting. The rain is heavy. Please return to the residence, Hair. With that, I turned and walked deeper into the covered walkway. His gaze lingered on my back, making a thin layer of cold sweat rise across my skin. That evening, Huayuan and I went to find Big Sister for dinner. Just as we rounded the crabapple bushes, we saw two figures standing behind a tree. Under the hazy moonlight, I recognized Wen Huiqing at once. He had pinned Big Sister against the tree trunk, half his body leaning toward her. Is it because Mother has been making things difficult for you that you want to move out? Big Sister turned her face away, not daring to look at him. Let me speak to Mother. He turned as if to leave. Big Sister panicked and summoned every ounce of courage she had. You mustn't, Hair. The Madam has been very kind to us. It's just that moving out might reduce the gossip. Wen Huiqing took another step forward. His eyes darkened as he stared intently at her. Tanger, as long as you're willing, I can go to the Kuei family on your behalf. Big Sister retreated in alarm until her back pressed against the tree, leaving her nowhere else to go. We were wrong. I cannot drag Juan's reputation down with me. I stood in the shadows and heard every word. Wen Huaiqing's expression shifted. A flash of surprise crossed his eyes, but the corner of his mouth curled into a mocking smile. She's so deeply calculating, always courting favor with the powerful, selfish and self-serving, thinking only of herself. The wind rustled through the tree canopy. I truly didn't understand. In this life, Wen Huaiqing and I had only met a handful of times and barely exchanged a few words. Why did he already hold such an opinion of me? You mustn't speak of Huan that way. Big Sister suddenly raised her voice, her tone firmer than I had ever heard it. Hair, Huan is my younger sister. I trust her. With that, she turned to leave, only to freeze the moment she looked up. Huan, why are you here? I said nothing. I simply stepped forward and took her hand. Her palm was drenched in cold sweat, her fingertips icy and still trembling faintly. I gave Wen Huaiqing a neutral greeting. Hair, the night wind is chilly, and Big Sister's health is frail. I'll take her back first. He stood beneath the crabapple tree, his expression unreadable in the shadows, and answered only with a low hum. On the way back to the courtyard, neither of us spoke. Once inside the room, Big Sister sat in a chair with her head bowed for a long time before she finally opened her mouth. Huan, I have something to tell you. I didn't press her. I simply sat there quietly and waited. In the early days after we first arrived at the residence, I missed home so much that I couldn't sleep at night. The air brought me a few storybooks filled with sweet words, and even a mynah bird that could mimic human speech. He said that when he was little and had just been sent to the outer courtyard to study, he had missed home too, and his mother had comforted him the same way. Her voice grew softer and softer as she spoke. After several such moments, improper thoughts began to stir in my heart. At that point, she suddenly lifted her head and looked at me. Her eyes were rimmed red. But now I've made things clear with him. I nodded. Good. Big Sister stared at me in a daze. Her lips moved several times. Huan, you don't blame me? Big Sister, you've already explained everything. What is there left for me to blame? She seemed relieved of a heavy burden, and her tears finally fell. I said nothing more. I simply handed her the handkerchief beside me. After thinking it over for several days, Big Sister finally nodded. She said, Huan, I'll move out with you. A weight lifted from my heart, as if a stone that had been hanging there for a long time had finally been set down. That very day, I began making arrangements. I asked around about available houses, personally inspected several, and finally chose a modest 2-courtyard residence with a small garden. It was quiet and safe. Once the lease was settled, I went to the main courtyard to bid farewell to the madame. The madame was drinking tea when I finished speaking. She set her cup down. You were doing fine here. Why the sudden desire to leave? She frowned slightly, her gaze sweeping across my face. Have we mistreated you girls in any way? I shook my head. The madame has shown us kindness as high as a mountain. It's only that Big Sister already has a betrothal. Staying here too long may invite gossip, and it wouldn't be good for the Marcus's reputation either. The madame was silent for a moment, then sighed softly. You two are fatherless and motherless children. If I don't look after you more carefully, how could I face your mother in the afterlife? Stay a few more days. Wait until the marriage is finalized before you leave. It won't be too late. I was about to speak when footsteps sounded behind me. Wen Huaiqing had arrived at some point and stood at the doorway, listening to everything with a somber expression. Seeing him, the madame said, Huaiqing, help me persuade Huan. The girls are determined to move out. Wen Huaiqing's gaze landed directly on me. His expression was not pleasant. He asked bluntly, "The two of you sisters, how do you plan to live after moving out?" I replied, "Father left us some property. We can manage. If you need anything," I added, turning back to the madam, "we can always ask the madam for help. She has already agreed." Then I bowed toward her. In the end, the madam nodded. "Very well. Since you've made up your minds to leave, it wouldn't be right for me to keep you. If you're lacking anything, just come and tell me." Wen Huaiqing stood to the side without another word, but his eyes followed me the entire time. I bowed my head and withdrew. Once we left the Marquis's gates, and the carriage had traveled some distance, I finally let out a long breath. Big Sister was different. She sat inside the carriage, face pale, her entire being filled with confusion and fear of the unknown future. "Can we really manage this?" "We can," I said, taking her hand. "Big Sister, don't be afraid." The carriage stopped in front of the rented house. I helped Big Sister down. Just as we were about to step inside, the broker behind us suddenly approached with a grin. "Miss, there's something I need to tell you." "What is it?" "The rent for this house has already been collected in full." He pulled a pouch of silver from his sleeve and offered it to me. "This is the excess amount. Please take it back." I paused, accepted the pouch, and frowned slightly. This house was in a prime location and quite spacious. When we negotiated, the price had already seemed low. Why would he return half of it? "With this much silver," I asked, "how could anyone rent a house in this location? Are you sure there's no mistake?" The broker's eyes darted around nervously. He glanced left and right, then lowered his voice. "The owner took pity on you two young ladies and decided to lower the price. Just accept it. It's for the best." My heart gave a sudden thud. When I rented the house, I had never said that only the two of us sisters would be living there. I had merely said it was for personal use, and that the household was small. Yet just now he had specifically said you two young ladies. I took a step back. "I won't rent this house." The broker's face changed. "Miss, you can't do that. This is such a good house. You could search with a lantern and still not find another like it." Big Sister tugged lightly at my sleeve and whispered, "Juan, isn't this place very good?" "The location is excellent and the courtyard is clean." I looked at the broker's shifty eyes and shook my head. "No, return the silver. We'll rent somewhere else." The broker broke into a nervous sweat. "Miss, please reconsider. So many people are fighting over this house. The owner specially kept it for you." "No need." I cut him off. He stared at me for a long while. Seeing my expression remain firm, he finally and reluctantly returned the full rental fee. I took Big Sister's hand and turned to leave. On the way, Big Sister kept asking why. I didn't explain much. I only said I felt uneasy. Being a little more cautious never hurt. Later, I found another house on the east side of the city, tucked inside a narrow alley. The courtyard was small, with only 3 main rooms and 2 side rooms. Moss grew along the base of the walls. The stone path in front of the gate had been worn by rainwater into shallow grooves. It couldn't compare to the splendor of the Marquis's residence and wasn't exactly presentable, but it had the advantage of being clean and quiet. Most importantly, I had found it myself, without anyone else's interference. Before evening, Wen Huaiqing came knocking. At the time, Big Sister had gone out to a shop to choose embroidery thread, leaving me alone in the courtyard airing out the bedding. The gate was ajar. I heard the sound, looked up, and saw him push the door open and walk in. Wen Huaiqing had come alone, without any attendants. His face was displeased. His gaze swept across the entire courtyard before finally landing on me. "Hair." I set the bedding down and offered a light greeting. "Big Sister isn't home." "I know." I glanced at him but didn't invite him inside. He seemed unconcerned and stood in the middle of the courtyard, staring straight at me. Then, suddenly, he spoke. "Why did you return that house?" My hands paused. Which house is the heir referring to? His voice carried a trace of irritation. I set down the things in my hands. "Herr, the reduced rent on that house, was that your doing?" He didn't deny it. He only laughed coldly. "I did it for Tanger. You should keep your word. Big Sister has already said that from now on, she and you have nothing to do with each other." Wen Waiqing expression darkened instantly. "If it weren't for you, why would Tanger avoid me like a viper? Guhuan, you don't want your big sister to live well, so you want her to suffer hardship with you. Is that it?" I frowned. Big Sister is very happy now. Tanger was very happy when she was with me. Those words seemed to strike a nerve. Wen Huiqing suddenly reached out and gripped my wrist tightly. "You're happy? You're selfish, cold-hearted, and scheming. You used Tanger to threaten me, and you still dare say you're happy?" The pain made me frown, but I clenched my teeth and refused to cry out. Wen Huiqing did not let go. "What exactly did you say to her? What did you tell her that made her refuse to see me?" "I didn't say anything. She figured it out on her own." "You say she figured it out? Figured what out? She doesn't understand anything. She only listens to you. If you tell her to go east, she wouldn't dare go west. If you tell her to move, she moves. If you tell her not to see me, she doesn't see me. Guhuan, you hold a string in your hand. What exactly do you take her for? Your puppet? Let go. Do you hate me that much? Hate me enough to destroy your big sister's marriage prospects? What is the Kui family to you? Have you even met Kui Mian? Do you know what kind of person he is? You know nothing, yet you've already decided for her. Or do you already have a secret lover?" I yanked my arm with force and actually managed to break free. A red ring had formed around my wrist, burning as if scorched by fire. Big Sister's marriage is not something you or I can interfere with. If you came here today as this heir of the Marquis household to pay a visit, then, on Big Sister's behalf, I thank you. But if you came for any other reasons— I paused. "Please return to the residence." The courtyard fell deathly silent for a moment. Wen Huiqing stood there, clearly furious. In the end, he laughed coldly, turned, and left. The gate slammed shut behind him with a loud bang. Checkpoint, 3,000 words, 20 min at 150 WPM. After the Kui family learned that we had moved out, they sent someone the very next day. An old maidservant arrived with 2 young maids carrying 2 loads of gifts. The old maidservant was neatly dressed and spoke politely. The moment she entered, she looked around once without showing the slightest trace of disdain. She simply smiled and said, "Our madam heard that the 2 young ladies had moved out and specially sent this old servant to visit. The eldest young miss is the future young madam of the Kui household. If you encounter any difficulties, please come to the Tsui residence. Don't stand on ceremony." Then she had the gifts brought inside. 1 load contained bolts of fine fabric. The other contained bird's nest, dried mushrooms, and various foodstuffs. There was also a separate pouch of silver for the 2 young ladies' daily expenses. Big Sister's eyes reddened. She nodded gratefully, her voice choked. "Please convey my thanks to the madam." The old maidservant chatted for a little while longer, saying that Lord Kui had been busy with official duties lately, but would come to visit in person once things settled down. After the visitors left, Big Sister sat beside the gifts and the vase for a long time. I asked what was wrong. She said softly, "I always thought the Kui family would break the engagement. I thought that after we sought shelter with the Marquis's household and then moved out, with so many ugly rumors flying around, the Kui family couldn't possibly accept it. That's why, when we were still at the Marquis's residence, I wanted to leave from there. I said, Big sister, listen to me. If the Kui family would truly break the engagement over something like this, then that family isn't worth marrying into. She froze. If Kui Mian looks down on you for being thin-skinned and moving out of the Marquis's residence, then his feelings only go that far. But he isn't that kind of person, is he? Big sister was silent for a moment, then nodded. Her eyes reddened again. The days gradually became more comfortable. I found a job delivering meals to an academy. After all, we couldn't simply live off the estate father left us until it ran dry. The Four Directions Academy wasn't far away, only about the time it took a single incense stick to burn. Not long ago, the headmaster there had posted a notice seeking help. I boldly prepared a few dishes and brought them over. To my surprise, they caught the old man's eye. 3 taels of silver a month was a decent income, and I could borrow books from the academy to read. Big sister stayed home and focused on preparing for her wedding. Every month, the Kui family sent people to check on us and bring gifts. Kui Mian would occasionally send a visiting card out of courtesy, but he never came in person. Each time Big Sister received a card, her eyes would turn red. I simply focused on my own work. Every morning, I rose early and went to the market to choose fresh vegetables. Then I brought them home, washed them, and cut them neatly. Before noon, I would finish cooking, pack everything into lunch boxes, and carry them to the academy. The headmaster was a thin old man in his 50s with an extremely picky palate. Fortunately, my cooking skills were decent. He had been eating my food for half a month without finding any major fault. Every time he came to collect the meals, he was accompanied by the same young master. The young man was tall, with a straight posture and extremely handsome features. Yet he was also extremely sparing with his words. I handed the lunchbox to him. The headmaster said, next time he wants sweet and sour fish. Understood. With that, the young master left. I once asked a boy at the academy about him. The boy replied, "That's Wei Ji, young Master Wei. He's the headmaster's student and also the martial instructor at our academy." I asked where he was from. The boy didn't know clearly. He only knew that young Master Wei had been at the academy for 2 years, that he had a cold personality, and that he didn't like socializing. I nodded and didn't ask any more questions. From then on, every day was the same. I finished cooking. He came to collect the meals, handed me the menu for the next time, and left. Not a single extra word. At first, I still wanted to exchange a few polite remarks, but seeing how he was, I gradually gave up the idea. That day, wind and rain were approaching. From early morning, the sky had been overcast, dark clouds hanging low. I hesitated over whether I should still deliver the meals, but then I thought of the headmaster's extremely picky palate. If I didn't go, he might complain all day tomorrow, so I still packed the lunchboxes and set out. By the time I reached the academy, the sky had already darkened like dusk. I handed over the lunchboxes. Wei Ji accepted them and glanced at the sky as if he wanted to say something. In the end, he stayed silent and turned to go inside. I stood under the covered walkway, waiting for him to bring the empty boxes back. Then a thunderclap suddenly boomed overhead. Heavy raindrops, each the size of a bean, poured down in torrents. By the time I received the empty lunchboxes, the rain had become a downpour. I had no choice but to huddle under the eaves, hugging the boxes and waiting for the rain to stop. But the rain only grew heavier, showing no sign of letting up. Rainwater cascaded from the eaves like a curtain, splashing onto the thin fabric of my shoes. I was considering whether to risk running back when the light in front of me suddenly dimmed. An umbrella had been raised over me. It was Wei Ji. He stood beside me, holding a green bamboo umbrella. Rain slid down the edge and soaked half his shoulder. "The rain is heavy," he said. "I'll walk you back." I paused, blurting out, The academy is so large. How can there be only one umbrella? A soft chuckle sounded above my head. I looked up. His face remained calm, as if the laugh hadn't come from him at all. Maybe I had misheard. The rain showed no intention of stopping, so I could only agree. He tilted the umbrella toward me. The two of us walked side by side into the curtain of rain. There weren't many people on the road. The few passers-by we saw kept their heads down and hurried home. The stalls on both sides had already been cleared away, leaving only empty awnings swaying in the wind and rain. I hugged the lunchboxes and walked carefully, but my shoes still became soaked. As we passed a narrow alley, someone came running from the opposite direction, head down and not watching the path. He crashed straight into me. I couldn't dodge in time and stumbled sideways. Weiji reached out and steadied my shoulder. Careful. I regained my balance and quickly stepped half a pace to the side, a little embarrassed. Thank you, young Master Wei. I'm truly sorry. Did I hurt you? He lowered his head and looked at me. It doesn't hurt. With such a small frame, how could you possibly hurt me? What? I thought I had misheard again. What did you say? He turned his face away and coughed lightly. Nothing. I just said to stay a little closer so you don't get wet. Only then did I realize that, after the collision just now, the umbrella had somehow shifted completely toward me, leaving half of Wei Ji's shoulder drenched. I pressed my lips together and quietly stepped closer to him. Wei Ji walked me all the way to the door. By then, the rain had eased into a light drizzle. Only a few scattered drops floated on the wind, carrying a faint chill as they brushed my face. He closed the umbrella and turned to leave just as the door suddenly opened. Big Sister stood in the doorway, holding an umbrella of her own, clearly about to come out and bring one to me. Her gaze landed on Wei Ji, then her eyes brightened. Young Master, since you brought Huan back in the rain, why not come inside and have a cup of hot tea to warm up? I thought Wei Ji would refuse. He had never liked socializing, and escorting me home was already rare enough. I never expected him to actually step inside, yet he paused for only a brief moment before nodding. Sorry to trouble you. Before I could say anything, Big Sister had already stepped aside to let him in. She poured him a cup of tea and sat down across from him. Young Master Wei, how many people are in your household? 4, he paused. Ah, no, 5. I'm the 5th. Big Sister nodded and asked again, what do you do for a living now? I work as a martial instructor at the academy. Usually, I also study with the headmaster. That's excellent, young and ambitious. Big Sister nodded once more, her smile deepening. I sat to the side, vaguely sensing that something felt wrong. How old is young Master Wei this year? 23. And are you already betrothed? Big Sister finally couldn't hold back anymore. Then she added, I'm only asking casually. Why? I wanted to say that it wasn't proper etiquette, but the words died on my tongue. Arguing with her right in front of Wei Ji would only make things more awkward, so I turned to look at him instead, hoping to spare him the discomfort. He remained as calm as ever. Not yet betrothed. Big Sister's eyes lit up. I wished I could crawl into a hole in the ground. Noticing that it was getting late and that the rain had completely stopped, I stood and offered to see Wei Ji out. Big Sister didn't protest. She simply smiled and said, take care on the way. Once Wei Ji had walked a good distance from the courtyard, I finally spoke. About what Big Sister said earlier, please don't take it to heart. She was just bored and talking nonsense. Wei Ji glanced at me, his expression unchanged. It's fine. I continued, she doesn't usually act like that. I don't know what came over her today. Maybe it's the rain. People tend to talk more on rainy days. The two of us walked side by side for a stretch. His strides were long, yet he deliberately slowed them to match mine. When we reached the entrance of the alley, Wei Ji stopped. Miss Gu, this is far enough. All right. Thank you again for escorting me home today. He nodded, turned, and started to leave. After a few steps, he suddenly paused, tilted his head, and looked back at me. Oh, right. Tomorrow the headmaster wants steamed lotus leaf meat. I understand. He turned and strode away. I headed back inside. The moment I stepped through the door, Big Sister's expression turned unusually serious. Juan, I've been thinking a lot these past few days. Every morning, I watch you get up before dawn and go to the market to buy vegetables. Then you come home to wash and chop them. After cooking, you carry those heavy lunch boxes all the way to the academy. In the afternoon, you still have to wash clothes and tidy the house. At night, you do needlework. You handle everything inside and out all by yourself. She lowered her eyes. In other families, the older sister takes care of the younger one. Yet with my personality, I can't do anything at all. On the day father passed away, you didn't shed a single tear. You were busy arranging the funeral, organizing the servants, and preparing the carriages, while I could only cry. She held back her tears and continued. I've become a burden to you. Big sister, let me finish. Juan, I'm about to get married soon. After that, I won't be able to stay by your side every day or help you with anything. You've done so much for me. I want to do something for you too. Her words came out in a clumsy rush. This was the first time she had ever tried to express her feelings so openly. My nose suddenly stung. In my previous life, she had never said any of this. After marrying into the Chui family, she had lived timidly as the young madam, staying safely under Chui Mian's protection without ever asking whether I was doing well. But now, she was sitting in front of me, awkwardly telling me that she wanted to do something for me. I reached out and took her hand. Big sister, even after you marry, I can still live well on my own. She shook her head stubbornly. I won't feel at ease. I smiled. Then go ahead and worry about me for the rest of your life. Worry about what I eat, what I wear, and whether I'm living comfortably. I'm happy to let you worry forever. She let out a relieved breath and pulled me into her arms. Then you have to marry well, so I can be at peace. The corners of my eyes grew a little damp. Wei Ji seemed like a completely different person these days. Before, he would simply take the lunch boxes, hand over the next day's menu, and leave without another word. But lately, he had started conversations on his own. He asked whether the weather was nice. He told me to be careful on the road. He asked whether the lunchboxes were too heavy and whether I needed him to carry them part of the way. I almost wondered if someone had swapped his soul. He had even begun lending me books, saying the ones left unused in the academy were just gathering dust, and that I might as well take them home to read. When I opened them, I found rare editions that couldn't be bought outside. Hardly the kind of thing that would simply collect dust. I thanked him and carried the books home. A few days later, he suddenly brought me a small cloth bundle. The headmaster said today's meal was delicious. This is a thank you gift. I opened it and found a white jade bracelet of exceptional quality. It was warm, translucent, and clearly no ordinary piece. Young Master Wei. I pushed the bracelet back toward him. If the headmaster's wife finds out, even 100 mouths won't be enough to clear my name. The corner of Wei Ji's mouth twitched, revealing a rare hint of embarrassment. I was about to press the bracelet back into his hand when a gentle laugh sounded behind me. Oh my, what are you two looking at? My entire body stiffened. I turned around to see the headmaster's wife, smiling with narrowed eyes as she watched us. Her gaze lingered on the bracelet in my hand, then flicked meaningfully toward Wei Ji. My heart gave a heavy thud. This was bad. The headmaster's wife stepped forward, took my hand without a word, and slipped the bracelet onto my wrist. Oh, it suits Miss Gu perfectly. When I chose it, I thought this color would look lovely against your skin, and I was right. I breathed a sigh of relief. So she had chosen it. But then something still felt off. I had only met the headmaster's wife a few times. Why would she suddenly give me such a valuable gift? I lowered my head to remove the bracelet. Madam, this is too precious. I can't accept it. She held my hand in place. It's not precious at all. I didn't even spend my own money on it. She paused. No, I mean, it's not worth much. Just a small token. It looks beautiful on you. That's its good fortune. Wei Ji gave a light cough and looked away, but his face had turned faintly red. That day, Cui Mian invited Big Sister for an outing in the mountains. Big Sister ran over happily to tell me, then suddenly changed her tone. Huan, you should come too. What would I do there? The two of you go on an outing while I stand beside you like a third wheel? I already invited young Master Wei to join us. I froze and looked up at her. Big Sister, why did you invite young Master Wei? Big Sister said, I went to find him again that day. I asked him straight out whether he likes you. My eyelid twitched. He admitted it. I can also tell that you don't dislike him. Since that's the case, why not give yourselves a chance? My heart pounded wildly. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Seeing me silent, Big Sister smiled. It's decided then. I'll come wake you tomorrow morning. The next morning, 2 carriages waited at the entrance of the alley. Cui Mian had arrived early and stood beside one of them. He was dressed in a blue robe and looked refined and elegant. When he saw me, he smiled politely, but his gaze quickly returned to Big Sister, gentle in a way that made me secretly approve. This marriage truly was good for her. Cui Mian had arranged the 2 carriages so that he and Big Sister rode in one, while Wei Ji and I took the other. Wei Ji carried a lunchbox in his hand. I glanced at Big Sister. She had already taken Cui Mian's arm to climb into their carriage, and before lowering the curtain, she gave me a playful wink. I could only sigh helplessly and step into the carriage. The carriage swayed as it set off. Wei Ji sat across from me and opened the lunchbox. Inside were osmanthus cakes, red date pastries, and mung bean cakes, all my favorites. Did you make these? I asked. Bought them, he answered with complete honesty. I don't know how to cook. I couldn't help smiling as I picked up an osmanthus cake and took a bite. It wasn't too sweet, not greasy at all. Perfect. Big Sister told me, I said. Then I trailed off, unsure how to continue. Wei Ji looked at me, and his face gradually reddened. I know, he said. I will come to propose in person. I choked. A crumb caught in my throat, and I began coughing violently. He panicked at once, hurriedly searching for the water pouch and handing it to me. I took it, drank a sip, and finally calmed down. When I looked up, I saw his face tight with tension, a mixture of alarm and worry. Miss, slow down. He was the one panicking first. Looking at him like this, I suddenly found it a little funny. Wei Ji, what exactly do you like about me? He froze, clearly not expecting the question. Does liking someone need a reason? He asked. Maybe I just liked you the moment I saw you. My face instantly burned. I quickly lowered my head, pretending to take another pastry. Just as my fingers touched the edge of the plate, the carriage jolted violently, as if it had rolled over a large stone. My body tilted, and I fell straight into his arms. My nose bumped against his chest, which was as hard as stone, while his breath brushed past my ear, scorching hot. My mind buzzed. I hurriedly braced my hands against his chest and sat up straight. I'm fine. The pear blossoms on Mount Huali were in full bloom, blankets of pure white stretching, as far as the eye could see. Quite a few young masters and young ladies had taken advantage of the fine weather to enjoy the scenery. Their laughter and chatter drifted lively among the flowers. I stared at the pear petals in a momentary daze, In my previous life, the rear courtyard of the Marquise's residence had also grown a few pear trees, but I had never been in the mood to admire them. Wen Huiqing disliked the scent of pear blossoms. He said it was too cold and tasteless, so he had ordered them all cut down. I lifted my head, my steps unconsciously slowed. Careful. Wei Ji's voice came from behind me as one steady hand caught my arm. Only then did I realize I had nearly walked into someone coming from the opposite direction. I quickly pulled my gaze back. Wen Huiqing stood 3 steps away, his face cold, his eyes fixed on Wei Ji's hand supporting my arm. His brows were drawn tight. "Herr Wen." I gave a slight nod in greeting and moved to step aside. "No wonder you insisted on moving out," he said coldly, "so you could carry on your little affair more conveniently." My footsteps halted. What exactly had I done in this life to make him speak such vicious words every time we met? The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. I turned around and slapped him hard across the face. Several passing young masters and ladies turned to look. Someone let out a soft gasp. Wen Huiqing's face jerked to the side, but the corner of his mouth curled into a mocking smile. "Isn't that right? A lowly martial instructor is worth all this scheming from you? You investigated him?" His eyes flashed. Then he laughed coldly again. "Who would bother investigating you? Then how do you know he's a martial instructor? How do you know whether he's poor or not? Who I spend time with has nothing to do with you." Wen Huiqing's gaze turned icy. "What are you that you think you're fit to speak to me?" Rage flared in my chest. I reached out and grabbed Wei Ji's hand. "Young Master Wei, let's go." The moment I turned, Wen Huiqing seized my wrist. "Tanger isn't married yet, and you're already making eyes at another man. Do you want the Kui family to look down on her?" "Wen Huiqing, by what right do you think you can control me?" Wei Ji caught Wen Huiqing's wrist and gently pried his hand away from mine. Wen Huiqing's expression darkened further. A calm voice suddenly sounded behind us. "Herr Wen, what a coincidence!" Cui Mian had approached at some point. Wen Huiqing glanced at him, then at Wei Ji, and laughed coldly. He flicked his sleeve, ready to leave. But Wei Ji refused to let him go. "Herr Wen, why don't you test for yourself whether a mere martial instructor like me is worthy of pursuing Huan?" Wen Huiqing stopped. He turned back and curled his lip in disdain. Wei Ji continued, "Huan, wait for me a moment. I'll be right back." I was about to stop him when Cui Mian spoke. "I know a restaurant nearby." "It isn't far at all. I've already reserved a private room. Why don't we eat while we wait?" Big Sister walked over as well, linked her arm with mine, and whispered, "Huan, come on!" Half dragged by Big Sister, I climbed into the carriage. Inside Tiancheng restaurant, Cui Mian had reserved an elegant private room. The window overlooked the pear blossom forest on the mountainside, offering a breathtaking view. But I couldn't sit still. Wei Ji was only a martial instructor. The person across from him was the heir of a marquis's household. What if Wen Huiqing used his power to pressure him? What if he brought attendants? Cui Mian placed a piece of fish into Big Sister's bowl, then turned to look at me. "Second young Miss Gu, there's no need to worry." How could I not worry? I couldn't wait any longer. I told Big Sister I was stepping out, then rose and opened the door. At the turn of the second-floor corridor, voices drifted up from the staircase. Cui Mian's voice carried a trace of teasing. "Your Highness, are you jealous over a beauty?" "Your Highness? Who is this prince?" Wei Ji answered. "Don't pretend you don't want to hit him yourself. He's been eyeing your fiancé for ages, hanging around the 2 sisters' residence every few days like a lovesick fool. If you weren't worried, why ask me to keep an eye on things?" Cui Mian chuckled. "Aren't we good brothers? I've been swamped with official duties and couldn't get away, so I asked you to watch over her a little. I never told you to steal my future little sister-in-law in the process." I held my breath. "The headmaster said you ate all her meals and even used his wife's hand to give her the bracelet. Your Highness, since when did you become such a coward?" Silence fell for a moment, then Wei Ji spoke again. "Huan is sensitive. I didn't dare scare her." Cui Mian's smile faded, and his voice turned serious. "No, second young Miss Gu isn't sensitive. She's strong-willed. If your Highness is sincere, then as her future brother-in-law, I hope you will treat her with true affection." "Of course I'm sincere." I stood at the corner of the corridor, my mind in turmoil. He wasn't a martial instructor at all. He was a prince. Footsteps sounded at the head of the stairs. By the time I snapped out of it, Wei Ji and Cui Mian had rounded the corner, and our eyes met. The corridor fell silent for a heartbeat. I spoke hoarsely. "I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I only came out to find you." Cui Mian gave a light cough, tactful as ever. "I'll go check on Tanger." With that, he quickly left. Only Wei Ji and I remained in the corridor. "You heard everything." His voice carried a trace of unease. "I didn't mean to deceive you. The truth is," his words came out a little jumbled, no longer as steady as usual. I noticed a small tear on the back of his hand, faintly oozing blood. "Does your hand hurt?" Wei Ji froze. Then he lowered his head to look. "It doesn't hurt. It wouldn't kill me even if it did." I lifted his hand, leaned closer, and gently blew on it. His hand was large, his knuckles prominent, with a thin layer of calluses at the base of the thumb, clearly from years of martial training. Wei Ji's entire body went rigid. His throat bobbed slightly. I looked up at him. "Did you win?" His eyes glazed over for a moment before he answered proudly, "Of course. How could he possibly beat me?" I gently released his hand. For an instant, the light in his eyes dimmed. "Wei Ji, next time you get into a fight, remember to protect your hands. Don't get hurt." He stared at me in a daze. Next time, I'll have someone else do the hitting." Not long after we returned home, the Kuei family sent people over to discuss the wedding date in high spirits. Big Sister sat to the side, listening to the old maidservant explain the etiquette, her cheeks flushed pink. After seeing the visitors off, she turned to me, both nervous and hopeful. "Huan, the Kuei family says the 18th of next month is an auspicious day. What do you think? Will I do all right once I marry into their family?" Big Sister. I took her hand. "You don't need to do anything special. Just be yourself." She breathed a sigh of relief. Big Sister's personality gradually grew more open. I suspected it was because Cui Mian had given her enough security, or perhaps because she had finally come to believe she deserved to be treated kindly. Things with Wei Ji were progressing just as quickly. He said that when the time came for the betrothal gifts, he would invite the headmaster and his wife. I had assumed he had grown close to them after spending so long at the academy and simply regarded them as elders. I never expected that, on the day the betrothal gifts arrived, the person who came with them was a eunuch from the palace. He held an imperial edict in his hands. I knelt on the ground, listening to the eunuch's solemn voice as he read out the emperor's decree bestowing marriage between the Xiaoyao king and the second daughter of the Gu family. My mind buzzed. I had never imagined the emperor himself would issue a marriage decree. The headmaster stood to the side, stroking his beard with a smile. Only after the eunuch left did he speak leisurely. "The first day you brought meals to the academy, I hadn't even taken a bite before he snatched the box away. I thought he was just fond of the food. Only now do I understand." He glanced at Wei Ji and shook his head with a laugh. Turns out he was fond of the cook. The headmaster's wife joined in the teasing. Exactly. I spent half the day choosing that bracelet, and he stood there criticizing. This one wasn't pretty enough. That one was too plain. Even pickier than I was. I told him if he cared so much, he should deliver it himself. But he said a mere martial instructor giving a gift directly wouldn't be proper, and insisted on dragging me along. Wei Ji stood to the side, stealing glances at me. I lowered my head, unable to stop the corners of my mouth from curving upward. Later, I heard the full story from Cui Mian. That day on the mountain, Wei Ji had beaten Wen Huaiqing quite badly, even knocking out 2 of his front teeth. Lately, Wen Huaiqing had been busy looking for someone to make him a false set and didn't dare show his face in public. I asked Wei Ji if it was true. He didn't deny it. He only said one sentence. He deserved it. I said, "You knocked out the man's teeth. What if he reports you to the emperor?" He wouldn't dare. He struck first. I only defended myself. Besides, my royal brother has been displeased with the Marquis of Jinbei's household for a long time. I didn't press further. Time passed peacefully. After classes each day, Wei Ji would come find me. Sometimes he took me strolling through the streets. Sometimes he brought me to admire the lakes. Sometimes he sat in the courtyard and watched me cook. He still didn't speak much, but he no longer felt cold. He would quietly split firewood, carry water, or sit beside me as I read the books he had lent me. Whenever I raised my head, I would find him looking at me. Then he would quickly turn away, as if the wall beside him had suddenly become very interesting. Big Sister's wedding day arrived. The Kuei family's bridal sedan stopped at the mouth of the alley, with drums and gongs, filling the entire street with joyous noise. Big Sister wore a magnificent red wedding gown that made her look like a painting come to life. Just before she stepped into the sedan, she suddenly turned and hugged me tightly. I thought she was reluctant to leave. "Huan," she whispered, "I had a dream." "What dream?" I asked. In the dream, I was timid and weak. I was afraid of everything, always hiding behind other people. And you didn't shed a single tear. A drop of her tear landed on my neck. In the dream, you didn't live well. You took the blame for me, married a man who didn't love you, and endured countless grievances. When you were 30, you fell ill. No one took proper care of you, and you simply passed away. My whole body went rigid. I dreamed of the day you died, she continued. I cried until the sky and earth darkened. Only then did I realize I had ruined you. After that, in the dream, I lived in resentment and unhappiness, and soon followed you in death. Big Sister released me, tears streaming down her face. Huan, the older sister in that dream, I truly hate her. I was at a loss for words, my heart twisted with countless emotions. In my previous life, after I married, I had gradually grown distant from Big Sister. She lived her life in the Kui household while I endured mine in the Marquis's residence. I had always thought she was living well. I thought she didn't know about my suffering. I thought she had never cared. Yet she said she had died of resentment after me. I pulled her into a tight embrace. Big Sister, you are my big sister. The one who, when I was 5 and fell into the water, jumped into the pond to save me. The one who, when the neighbor's dog chased me, stood in front of me and let it bite her arm, leaving such a deep scar. My voice trembled. I only want you to live a smooth, happy life. The bridal sedan outside urged her 3 times before Big Sister finally let go, full of reluctance. I helped her into the sedan. As the curtain fell, I saw her wipe her tears and smile. Checkpoint 6,000 words. 40 min at 150 WPM, a figure stood beneath the old locust tree at the mouth of the alley. Wen Huaiqing, he had come alone. He looked thinner than before, with a bruise still fading at the corner of his mouth. He stared at me in a daze, his eyes hollow, as if he had aged 10 years overnight. My heart clenched. I was afraid he would chase after the bridal sedan. Big Sister had worked so hard to secure this good match, and Kui Mian treated her so well. If Wen Huaiqing caused trouble today, Where would that leave big sister's dignity? I instinctively took half a step back into the doorway, already calculating whether there was still time to send someone to the academy to fetch Wei Ji. One more beating. This time, I would make sure he learned his lesson for good. It would be best to break his legs. But when Huiqing didn't move, he simply looked at me, his lips moving slightly. Wei Ji is the Xiao Yao king. You've grown close to him. I looked at him, puzzled. What does that have to do with you? Wen Huiqing's face turned deathly pale. You planned everything from the beginning, didn't you? From the moment you moved out with Tanger, you already had it all figured out. You latched onto the Xiao Yao king to escape me. You've gone mad. I frowned. I moved out not to rely on anyone, but so that big sister and I could live well on our own. Wen Huiqing said, I had a dream too. My breathing hitched. In the dream, you married me. You weren't happy. He had also been reborn. No wonder, from the very beginning, he had hated me and guarded against me like this. I only hate myself, he said. In the dream, I clearly married you while loathing you. Yet it turned out to be love. Even if I could live my life over, I would still love you. I found the whole thing utterly absurd. In my previous life, after Big Sister married, when the madame said she wanted to marry me to him, I had refused. I knelt before the madame and said I did not dare. But Wen Huiqing himself said that he had admired me for a long time. With that single sentence, he sealed my fate. I became the shameless seductress who had lured the heir. I looked at Wen Huiqing and spoke word by word. The madame said you wanted to marry me. I refused. But you yourself claimed you had already developed feelings for me long ago. Wen Huiqing, weren't you the one who ruined me? He opened his mouth, but no words came out. With 2 front teeth missing, he looked utterly wretched. You say you love me, but from beginning to end, have you ever asked me a single question? Asked whether I was willing? Asked whether I was happy? I looked at him coldly. You didn't. You only hated me, resented me, tormented me, and then suddenly discovered you loved me. And then what? You expect me to be grateful and accept it. His face turned paler and paler. Wen Huiqing, in my previous life, when you forced me to drink the contraceptive tonic, you said that if you could do it over, you only wished to correct your mistake. I paused. Now we have done it over. Have you corrected your mistake yet? At that exact moment, Wei Ji came running over in a hurry, 2 attendants behind him. Without a word, he rushed forward and swung a cudgel. Before I could react, Wen Huiqing had already been dragged away. Only after confirming I was unharmed did Wei Ji breathe a sigh of relief. Are you all right? I laughed. I'm fine. You ran here really fast this time. Later, the madam arrived. The moment she stepped inside, she looked around once. You're about to become the Xiao Yao king's consort. Why are you still living in a place like this? The wedding day hasn't arrived yet. I poured her a cup of tea. Anywhere is the same. She accepted the cup but didn't drink it, setting it aside instead. After a long silence, she finally spoke. Originally, I had hoped for you to become Huiqing's wife. My hands paused, but I said nothing. Your temperament is steady and capable. Unlike your older sister, who is timid, you could shoulder responsibilities and manage the household. She sighed. I never expected you to become betrothed to the Xiao Yao king. I said, Madame, there was never any affinity between the heir and me. But when he got drunk in the residence, he called out your name. That has nothing to do with me. The madam moved her lips, then sighed. She stood up to leave. 2 months later, I became the Xiao Yao king's consort. The wedding at the Xiao Yao prince's residence was extraordinarily lively. Wei Ji rode a fine horse to escort the bride, his bright red wedding robe making his handsome features even more striking. Big Sister was so happy that she soaked 2 handkerchiefs with tears. On the third day after the wedding, I heard a piece of news. On the day I married, Wen Huaiqing had gotten drunk. He ran to the well, called out someone's name, and fell in. By the time they pulled him out, he was already gone. Some people said he had called out a name that sounded like Huan, meaning wind. Others thought it sounded like Huan, meaning maple. No one was sure.